Greetings everybody, Fu here with part 9 to build your Havoc Trooper. Going to look at the completed helmet. Alright, when you get your helmet, it's going to be your standard resin cast. No outside trimming that needs to be done. You will need to drill a large hole somewhere around here, and then I would use a hacksaw. You can drill out the four corners, the lower corners, but I use a hacksaw, just the blade so I can slowly control the cut as I go. With a Dremel, if you slip, you're digging into resin, then you have to fix it. So I use a hacksaw to cut everything out. That's just a motorcycle visor. The cheek vents, same thing. I drilled the width, found a drill bit the width of the hole, put a hole at the top and the bottom of each one, and then use the hacksaw again, and then I just use an X-Acto blade to get my corners nice and square. Your visor is going to come in three parts. It's going to be from this seam down, so this arm down to the side, that's one piece, the main visor part, and again the arm on this side. Those are the three pieces you're going to have. Don't trim it until you get it together. You know, if you need to do any trimming to get the seam to line up, that's fine. But what I did is I got a box that was this width, so that I knew I had 90 degrees, and I taped everything in place, and then I depth-conned my seam and, you know, smoothed it all out so I didn't have too much sanding to do afterwards. But that way I knew I had a good 90 degree, so I'd have wouldn't have any problems with things lining up. Then what I did is, as I got down into here, I would push it in and I would see where it was touching, and I would mark it with a pencil, and I would, with an X-Acto blade, trim those spots. And little by little I would trim it until I got it to hug this edge. Alright, once I was getting close there, what I went ahead and did is I figured out where my visor was going to sit. I used post screws. We've used post screws before. This is a 5/8 post screw, and drilled it all the way through into the helmet. This is an 1.25" washer, which you're going to need to cover this gap to fit in here. And a 1-inch one will actually slip inside, so use an 1.25", because what you can't see is this actually takes a little turn in here. So use an 1.25" washer. I think it's a 5/8 post screw to hold those in place. And then at the bottom, you can see again, I have one of the split rivets to hold that in close to the cheek. So there's the construction side of things. Paint job, started with gray primer, then I use white primer for all my white on this project. This is a smoke gray made by Blackhawk. It's got a little gloss to it because I wanted to be able to sand it down and rough it up and have some different textures to it. And then the only black is this on the top of the frown, if you will. That's the only black on the helmet. Everything else is gray. The cheeks are gray, those are gray. Your air filters are white. This will be that gray again. The insides of the cheeks I did gray. All your lines. Don't forget your definitions there. Your spots on the back, and of course your stripe on the top are all going to be gray. For fans on the inside, I used, I think they're 68mm fans, and they're 9-volt, so they're actually run right to a 9-volt battery. And then I've got them both run into a chin switch right here, which I can actually bump with my chin, and that'll turn both sides on, and you get good airflow moving in your cheeks and around, and does a good job of keeping you cool and keeping things from fogging up. The motorcycle visor, when I squeeze it in place, I just went ahead and found a spot I picked right behind the post screws and just trimmed it right on the edge there. And right now I don't have anything else holding it in place except the way it's pushing out against things. Seems to fit pretty snugly. So turn the fan off so we don't want to hum anymore. So that's going to be your work on the helmet. Again, remember, this is a battle damaged piece. This does not need to be perfectly smooth. Divots are okay. You're going to be putting divots into it. You're going to be scratching up the paint job, so don't be overly concerned with, is it totally perfectly smooth? Just make sure you can justify it as a spot that's going to be a blaster mark or a gouge, and paint that accordingly. Alright, we'll see you in part 10.